I stared at my laptop screen, hands shaking. Empty. Completely empty. Every line of code, every project, every proof of 3 years of work vanished. My dad stood in the doorway, arms crossed, that smug look plastered across his face. "Women can't code, Marissa. Stop embarrassing us." Behind him, my mom nodded. "Your brother Derek is the real programmer in this family. Tech is for real men." My interview at Soft Cloud Solutions was in 9 hours. The position I dreamed about since college, and they just deleted everything. The panic hit me like ice water. I clicked through folders frantically, hoping maybe they'd just moved files around, hidden them somewhere. But no, my documents folder was empty. My downloads folder was wiped. Even my desktop was blank, except for the default background. 3 years of projects gone. I ran to my desk drawer where I kept my external hard drives. My backup drives. The drawer was open, and they were missing. Both of them. I spun around to face my dad. "Where are they? Where are my drives?" He shrugged. "Threw them out." "You don't need them anymore." "You threw them out. Those had everything on them. My entire portfolio, my projects, my code." My mom stepped into my room. Her face set in that disapproving expression I knew so well. "Marissa, you're 28 years old. It's time to be realistic. This coding thing has gone on long enough. Your cousin Amanda just got engaged. She's a teacher. That's a respectable career for a woman." "I don't want to be a teacher. I'm a software developer. That's my career." "No," my dad said firmly. "Derek is the software developer in this family. You're making us look foolish going around pretending you can do what he does. That interview tomorrow, you're not going." The room spun. I couldn't breathe. They'd sabotaged me. My own parents had sabotaged my career. But then I remembered. The cloud. I had backups on GitHub. I had repositories private and public with every single project timestamped and documented. My hands were still shaking as I grabbed my phone and logged into GitHub. Relief flooded through me so intensely I almost cried. Everything was there. Safe. Organized. My portfolio website code. My award-winning mobile app from my senior year. The machine learning algorithm I'd spent 8 months perfecting. All of it backed up with complete commit histories showing every single change I'd made over the past 3 years. "You can delete my local files," I said quietly, my voice steadier now. "But you can't delete the cloud. Everything's backed up. Every project. Every line of code. All time-stamped with my username. I'm still going to that interview." My dad's face turned red. "You're living under my roof. You'll do what I say. I'm 28. I pay rent. And I'm going to that interview whether you like it or not." I turned back to my laptop and started downloading my repositories. I'd stay up all night if I had to rebuilding my portfolio presentation. They couldn't stop me. But then Derek appeared in my doorway. My younger brother, 25, supposedly the golden child of the family. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. "Marissa, can we talk?" "Not now, Derek. I have work to do. It's important. About tomorrow." Something in his tone made me look up. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "What about tomorrow?" "I have an interview too, at Soft Cloud. Same week as you." My blood went cold. "You applied to Soft Cloud?" "Yeah. For a developer position. Dad helped me with my application." "What do you mean he helped you?" Derek shifted uncomfortably. "He gave me some code samples to include, to make my portfolio stronger." The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. "What code samples, Derek?" "Just some projects. Machine learning stuff. An app. Some algorithms." I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. "My projects. You used my projects. They're good projects. I just modified them a little. Added some comments. Changed variable names." "Those are my projects. I spent months building that algorithm. The app won my senior thesis award." My mom interjected. "Oh, stop being so dramatic. Derek needed help. That's what family does. You weren't using those projects anyway." "I wasn't using them. Mom, my interview is tomorrow. I was absolutely using them." My dad stepped forward. "Derek has an interview on Thursday. He deserves this opportunity. He's been working very hard. On stealing my work. He's your brother, my mom said coldly. You should be supporting him, not competing with him. It's not attractive, Marissa. This jealousy. I looked at Derek. Did you really apply with my code? He had the decency to look ashamed, but he nodded. Dad said it would be fine. That you'd done the work, so it was kind of family property. Family property code doesn't work like that. That's intellectual property theft. Don't be so dramatic, my dad snapped. You're always so dramatic. Derek is going to get that job, and you're going to stop embarrassing this family with your ridiculous tech fantasies. Do you understand? I understood perfectly. My family had conspired against me. They'd stolen my work, given it to my brother, and now they were trying to stop me from competing for the same position. But I had something they didn't know about. I had proof. Every GitHub commit was time-stamped with my username. Every change was documented. Every project had my digital signature all over it. I'm going to that interview, I said. And I'm going to show them my work. My real work. With my name on it and my timestamps proving it's mine. My dad's expression turned ugly. Then you can find somewhere else to live. Fine. I grabbed my laptop and my phone and walked out of my room. I'd sleep in my car if I had to. I had 9 hours to prepare for the most important interview of my life, and my own family had just declared war on my career. But I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. I went downstairs to the kitchen and made coffee. Strong coffee. It was going to be a long night. I woke up at 6 a.m. stiff and uncomfortable. I'd ended up sleeping on the couch in the basement, not wanting to be anywhere near my parents. My neck ached and my eyes felt gritty from lack of sleep, but I'd rebuilt my entire portfolio presentation. Every project was downloaded, organized, and ready to show. I had my GitHub links prepared, my commit histories printed as backup, and my laptop fully charged. The interview was at 10. I had 4 hours to shower, dress professionally, and get there. SoftCloud Solutions was 45 minutes away in good traffic. I'd give myself an hour to be safe. I crept upstairs quietly. The house was still dark. Good. I didn't want another confrontation. I showered quickly, then went to my room to get my interview outfit. I'd picked it out days ago. Navy blazer, white blouse, gray pants. Professional but not stuffy. My good shoes were in the closet. By 7:30, I was dressed and ready. My presentation was loaded on my laptop. I had physical copies of my resume and portfolio pieces. I'd even brought a USB drive with backups just in case. I was as prepared as I could possibly be. I grabbed my car keys and purse and headed for the garage. But when I got there, my heart sank. My car was sitting at an odd angle. I walked closer. Both tires on the driver's side were flat. Not just flat, slashed. Long cuts in the rubber, clearly deliberate. My hands started shaking again. I checked the other side. Those tires were fine. This was targeted. This was sabotage. I heard the garage door from the house open. My dad walked out already dressed for his day. He looked at my car, then at me and shrugged. Looks like you've got car trouble. You did this. I've been inside all morning. Can't help that you've got bad luck. You slashed my tires. Prove it. He walked to his truck, climbed in, and backed out of the garage. Through the window, I could see him smirking as he drove away. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I didn't have time for either. I pulled out my phone and opened the rideshare app. Surge pricing, of course. It would cost $60 to get to SoftCloud, and there was a 30-minute wait for a driver. It was 7:45. With a 30-minute wait and a 45-minute drive, I'd arrive at 9. That gave me 1 hour of buffer before my 10 o'clock interview. It would be tight, but it would work. I requested the ride, and then called SoftCloud's main number. The receptionist answered on the 3rd ring. SoftCloud. Solutions. How may I help you? Hi, this is Marissa Thompson. I have an interview scheduled for 10 this morning, but I'm having a transportation emergency. Is there any way I could possibly push my time back by an hour? I'll definitely be there. I just need a little extra time. There was a pause, some typing. Let me check with the hiring manager. Can you hold? Yes, absolutely. The hold music was generic and grating. I paced in the driveway, watching for my ride. 2 minutes passed. 3. Finally, the receptionist came back. Miss Thompson, the hiring manager says they can accommodate you at 11 instead of 10. Does that work? Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. No problem. We'll see you at 11. I hung up, relief washing over me. Okay, this was fine. I'd still make it. My family couldn't stop me. The ride share arrived 28 minutes later. I climbed in, gave the driver the address, and tried to calm my racing heart during the drive. Traffic was heavier than I'd expected, and we didn't arrive at the Soft Cloud building until 9:45. Still plenty of time. I thanked the driver, grabbed my bag, and walked into the building. The lobby was modern and sleek, all glass and chrome. The receptionist checked me in and directed me to the 3rd floor. I took the elevator up, still feeling good about my chances despite the chaotic morning. But when I stepped off the elevator and walked into the waiting area, my stomach dropped. Derek was sitting there, my brother, in his best suit holding a portfolio folder, looking confident and relaxed. When he saw me, he smirked. Hey sis, fancy meeting you here. What are you doing here? You said your interview was Thursday. Changed it. Asked if they had anything sooner. They had a cancellation this morning. His smile widened. I just finished, actually. Went really well. My mind raced. He'd already interviewed. He'd already shown them the projects he stole from me, which meant when I went in there, they'd see the same work. I sat down across from him, trying to keep my expression neutral. What did you show them? The algorithm. The app. Some web development samples. They were really impressed. Derek, those are my projects. There are projects. You heard Mom. Family property. That's not how this works. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Listen, Marissa. I know you're upset, but think about it. I need this more than you do. You already have a job. I'm still trying to break into the industry. Just let me have this one, okay? Be a good sister. You stole my work. I adapted it. There's a difference. Before I could respond, a door opened, and a woman in her 40s stepped out. Professional blazer-kind eyes, but a tired expression. She looked at her tablet, then at me. Marissa Thompson. I stood up. Yes, that's me. I'm Sharon Davis, the hiring manager. Sorry for the delay. We had a longer interview this morning than expected. She glanced at Derek, who gave her a friendly wave. Come on back. I followed her down a hallway to a conference room. Inside, a man in his 30s was setting up a laptop for screen sharing. Sharon introduced him as Andrew Chen, the technical lead. We shook hands, and I sat down across from them. So Sharon began opening her tablet. We've reviewed your application and resume. Very impressive background. Tell us about your experience with machine learning. I launched into my explanation, describing the algorithm I'd built during my last year of college. How I'd trained it, what data sets I'd used, what problems it solved. I was halfway through when Sharon held up a hand. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've actually seen very similar work today. Can you explain the similarities between your portfolio and Derek Thompson's? My heart sank. Derek is my brother. He used my code without permission. Andrew and Sharon exchanged a glance. Andrew spoke carefully. Family members do sometimes collaborate on projects and then have disputes about credit. Can you provide any documentation showing this work is yours? Absolutely. I opened my laptop and pulled up my GitHub profile. Here are my repositories. You can see the commit history going back 3 years. Every change is timestamped with my username. Derek doesn't have access to these repositories. He copied the final code. Sharon leaned in, studying the screen. Andrew did too. They clicked through several commits, checking timestamps. They seemed satisfied. This is helpful, Sharon said. Can you show us the main algorithm repository? I nodded and typed in the URL, but when the page loaded, my blood went cold. Access denied. The repository was set to private, and I wasn't listed as a collaborator. That's strange, I said, my voice shaking. This was public yesterday. Someone must have changed the settings. I tried to log in, but my password didn't work. My recovery email sent a reset link, but when I clicked it, nothing happened. Someone had accessed my account and locked me out. Andrew's expression grew skeptical. Miss Thompson, are you saying someone hacked your GitHub account? My brother must have. He had my passwords. We used to share a family computer, and I never changed some of my old login information. Sharon sighed. I see. Well, without access to the repositories, it's difficult to verify the timeline you've described. Do you have any other way to prove this work is yours? I pulled out my printed commit histories, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. Derek had interviewed first. He'd seemed confident and prepared. And now I looked like someone scrambling to cover up plagiarism with convenient excuses about hacked accounts. The rest of the interview limped along painfully. I tried to demonstrate my knowledge by explaining technical concepts in detail, by answering their coding questions, by showing other projects. But the doubt had been planted. Every answer I gave felt like it was being measured against Derek's earlier performance. When it ended, Sharon shook my hand with a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. We'll be in touch. We need to look into the situation further before making any decisions. I knew what that meant. I'd lost the opportunity. But worse than losing the job, my professional reputation was now in question. I walked out of the building in a daze. Derek was gone. My phone buzzed with a text from him. Better luck next time, sis. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, trying not to cry. Then I realized this wasn't over. I could fix this. I had to fix this. I called GitHub support and started the process of reporting unauthorized access. I documented everything, but I knew it would take time. Time I might not have. I sat in the SoftCloud parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. My brother had stolen my work, interviewed before me, and planted enough doubt that I now looked like the thief. And he'd somehow accessed my GitHub account to lock me out of my most important repository at the exact moment I needed it most. I finally started the car and drove home. No, not home. That place wasn't home anymore. But I needed to get my things. I needed to figure out my next move. When I pulled into the driveway at 1 p.m, both my parents' cars were there. Great, I'd hoped to avoid them. I parked and walked inside through the front door. My mom was in the kitchen. She looked up when I came in. How did it go? You know how it went. Derek already told you. He said you embarrassed yourself. Said you accused him of stealing in front of the hiring managers. He did steal. He stole my code, Mom. Months of my work. Your father and I don't want to hear any more of this. Derek has been working very hard. If you can't be supportive, then maybe you should think about finding your own place. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I went upstairs to my room and started packing. Clothes, toiletries, important documents. My laptop was already with me. I'd find a cheap motel for a few nights while I figured things out. I had about $1,200 in my checking account. Not much, but enough for temporary housing while I sorted out this mess. My phone rang. My best friend from college, Taylor Brooks. I answered immediately. Taylor, thank God. Marissa, what's wrong? You sound awful. I told her everything. The deleted portfolio, the stolen code, the sabotaged interview, Derek locking me out of my GitHub. Taylor listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I loved about her. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Okay, she said finally. First, you're not staying in a motel. You're coming to stay with me. I have a spare bedroom. Second, I remember your senior project. I was your partner on that initial prototype before you expanded it for your thesis. I can vouch for your work. Taylor, I can't impose on you. You're not imposing. You're my friend. Pack your stuff and come over. We'll figure this out together. I felt tears prickling my eyes. Thank you. That's what friends are for. Now get your stuff and get out of that house. I hung up and continued packing. I was loading the last box into my car when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Texts, emails, social media alerts. I pulled up my phone and my stomach dropped. Derek had posted on LinkedIn, on several tech forums, even on Twitter. The post was long and detailed. He claimed I was his older sister who had always resented his success in tech. He said I'd tried to sabotage his interview at SoftCloud by claiming his work was mine. He provided screenshots of his interview confirmation email snippets of code with his name on them and a long explanation about how he'd been working on these projects for the past year while I'd been jealous and unsupportive. The comments were already rolling in. Some people were skeptical, but many believed him. Sorry you're dealing with family drama. Some people can't handle other people's success. Document everything for legal purposes. I felt sick. This wasn't just about one job anymore. Derek was destroying my professional reputation publicly. I called GitHub support again, but I got an automated message saying my ticket was in queue and would be addressed within 48 to 72 hours. I tried password recovery again. Still nothing. Derek must have changed my recovery email to something I didn't control. My phone rang. My current boss, Gary Sullivan, from the small software firm where I worked part-time as a junior developer. I answered with a sense of dread. Marissa, we need to talk. Hi, Gary. I've received some concerning information. There are posts online accusing you of plagiarism and claiming you've stolen code from a family member. Is this true? No, it's the opposite. My brother stole my work and is trying to cover it up by discrediting me. I see. Well, I need to take this seriously. Intellectual property theft is a serious allegation. I'm going to have to put you on administrative leave while we conduct an internal review. Gary, I've been with you for 2 years. You know my work. You know I'm honest. I know and I want to believe you. But I have to protect the company. This leave is paid for now, but you'll need to provide documentation proving your innocence. If you can do that, you'll be fully reinstated. But until then, I can't have you working on client projects. How long will the review take? At least 2 weeks. Maybe longer. 2 weeks without work. 2 weeks without income. My rent payment to my parents was due in 3 days. Not that I'd be paying it now since I was leaving. But I still had student loan payments, car insurance, my phone bill. I'd already spent $60 on the rideshare this morning. I understand, I said quietly. I'm sorry, Marissa. I hope this gets cleared up quickly. He hung up. I stood there in the driveway holding a box of my belongings and felt the full weight of what my family had done. They hadn't just sabotaged one interview. They'd systematically destroyed my career, my reputation, and my financial stability. I loaded the last box, got in my car, and drove to Taylor's apartment across town. She met me at the door and helped me carry everything inside. It's worse, I told her. Derek posted all over social media. Gary put me on administrative leave. I can't work. I can't pay my bills. And in 72 hours, maybe I'll get my GitHub access back, but by then the damage might be permanent. Taylor put her hands on my shoulders. Listen to me. You're going to get through this. We're going to gather every piece of evidence you have. Old emails, texts, anything that shows your work. We're going to contact that professor who supervised your thesis. And we're going to fight back. With what money? If I can't work, I can't afford a lawyer. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, let's focus on documentation. We spent the rest of the afternoon and evening going through my old files. I found emails to Taylor from 2 years ago discussing bugs in my algorithm. I found photos I'd posted on social media showing my screen while I was coding with visible timestamps. I found texts with other classmates about my projects. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. That night, lying in Taylor's spare bedroom, I couldn't sleep. My phone kept buzzing with notifications, more comments on Derek's posts, more people weighing in, some defending me, most believing him. 3 companies I'd applied to over the past month sent rejection emails. They didn't explicitly say why, but the timing was obvious. By morning, I had a plan. I needed to contact my thesis advisor, Dr. Patricia Hayes. She'd supervised my machine learning project. She knew the work was mine. Her endorsement would carry weight. I emailed her at 7 in the morning explaining the situation and asking if she'd be willing to provide a statement. She responded within an hour. Marissa, I remember your project very clearly. You did excellent work. I'd be happy to provide documentation. Can we meet this afternoon? That was the first good news I'd had in 2 days. But then another notification came through. Derek had updated his post. He'd added more details claiming that I'd had access to his computer and must have copied his work when he wasn't looking. He said he had proof I'd requested copies of his transcripts from the university, though he'd actually requested copies of mine. I checked my university records portal. Someone had indeed requested my transcripts and project files 2 months ago, using an email address that looked like mine but wasn't. The request had been approved because it came from an official-looking email. Derek had impersonated me. He'd been planning this for months. I screenshotted everything and added it to my evidence folder. Then I met with Dr. Hayes that afternoon. She was sympathetic and horrified. "This is a clear case of intellectual property theft," she said. "I'll write a detailed statement. I have my notes from when I supervised your project, including your weekly progress reports. They're all dated, and in your own words. Thank you, Dr. Hayes. I don't know what I'd do without your help. You did the work, Marissa. I'm just documenting the truth." I left her office feeling slightly more hopeful, but when I got home, Taylor met me at the door with a grim expression. "Derek got the job at SoftCloud. He posted about it an hour ago." I pulled up his LinkedIn. There it was, a celebratory post. "Excited to announce I'm joining the amazing team at SoftCloud Solutions as a junior machine learning developer. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this journey. Hard work pays off." The comments were full of congratulations. My parents had commented too. My dad wrote, "Proud of you, son. You earned this." My mom wrote, "So happy for you, sweetie. You deserve all the success." That night there was a party at my parents' house. I could see the photos on social media. Derek in the center looking triumphant. My parents beaming. Extended family members congratulating him. Not a single person mentioned me. Taylor found me crying in her bathroom at midnight. "They're celebrating," I said. "They're celebrating him stealing my work." "I know, but you're going to fight this. We're going to make this right." But I didn't know how. Derek had the job. He had the family support. He had the public narrative. And I had an evidence folder and a mounting sense of despair. I spent the next 3 days compiling evidence. Taylor helped me organize everything into a clear timeline. We had my GitHub activity logs for the past 3 years showing consistent work. We had Dr. Hayes' detailed statement describing my weekly progress meetings during my senior thesis. We had old photos from my social media showing me working on code with dates visible. We had emails and texts with Taylor and other classmates discussing my projects. It was comprehensive. It was thorough. And I hoped it would be enough. GitHub support finally responded on day 4. They'd reviewed the access logs for my account. Someone had logged in from an IP address in my neighborhood and changed my password recovery email and privacy settings. The timing matched exactly with my interview at SoftCloud. They flagged the activity as suspicious and restored my access. I immediately logged in and set everything back to how it should be. I changed all my passwords, enabled 2-factor authentication, and documented everything. The commit history was intact. Every project showed my username and timestamps going back years. It was undeniable proof. But then I noticed something else in the access logs. The unauthorized access hadn't been a one-time thing. Someone had been logging into my account regularly for the past 3 months, viewing my repositories, downloading my code, reading my documentation. It had all been planned, methodical, calculated. I traced the IP address using a free online tool. It resolved to a location about 2 miles from my parents' house, Derek's apartment. "He's been stealing my work for months," I told Taylor, showing her the logs. "This wasn't impulsive. He planned this whole thing." "That actually helps your case. It shows premeditation. Have you thought about talking to a lawyer?" I had, but lawyers were expensive. I looked up intellectual property attorneys in the area. Most wanted retainers of $3,000 to $5,000 just to start. I had $1,200 to my name, and that had to cover food, gas, and my phone bill for at least 2 more weeks until Gary's internal review was finished. But I called one anyway. Jennifer Walsh, an IP attorney whose website said she offered free consultations. Her assistant scheduled me for the next afternoon. At home that evening, Taylor made dinner while I continued organizing evidence. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello?" "Marissa." It was Derek. He sounded nervous. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you. Please, just hear me out. This has gotten out of control. You stole my work, sabotaged my career, and turned our entire family against me. I know, and I feel terrible about it. But Mom and Dad, they were pushing so hard. They kept saying I needed to succeed, that I was the son, that it was my responsibility to make something of myself. I felt so much pressure. So you stole from me. I'm sorry. I really am. If you drop this whole thing, I'll tell Soft Cloud the truth. I'll say we collaborated. I'll make sure you get credit. I don't want credit for collaboration. I want credit for my own work. Because it is my work. All of it. Marissa, please. If this keeps going, I'm going to lose my job. Can't we just work something out? You should have thought about that before you stole from me. I hung up. My hands were shaking. He didn't sound genuinely sorry. He sounded scared of consequences. 10 minutes later, my dad called. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message. Marissa, your brother called me, very upset. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to stop this nonsense. Derek has a good job. Don't ruin his life because you're jealous. Call me back. I deleted the message. The next morning, I met with Jennifer Walsh. She was in her early 50s, sharp-eyed and direct. She listened to my story without interruption, reviewed my evidence, and nodded slowly. You have a strong case, she said. Very strong. The GitHub logs the university, records the thesis advisor's statement, the timeline. It's clear the work is yours, and your brother deliberately misappropriated it. Can I sue him? You can, for damages to your professional reputation and lost opportunities. But litigation is expensive and time-consuming. You'd need to retain me, which requires a retainer of $3,000. Then there are filing fees, discovery costs, potential expert witnesses. You'd be looking at $10,000 to $15,000 minimum, possibly more if it goes to trial. My heart sank. I don't have that kind of money. I know. Most people don't. There are other options. You could try to resolve this through demand letters and negotiation first. Sometimes the threat of a lawsuit is enough to force a resolution. What would that cost? I could draft and send a demand letter for $500. It would outline your claims and demand that your brother publicly retract his statements and compensate you for damages. If he refuses, then we'd have to decide whether to escalate. $500. I could do $500 if I skipped my student loan payment this month. It wasn't ideal, but it was something. Let's do it. We spent the next hour drafting the letter. It was detailed and formal, laying out all the evidence and demanding Derek retract his public statements within 7 days, return or destroy all copies of my code, and pay $5,000 in damages. Jennifer sent it via certified mail and email that afternoon. I felt a small sense of victory. At least I was fighting back now. But that feeling didn't last long. That evening, Taylor called me from work. She sounded worried. Marissa, there's something you need to see. Check Derek's Twitter. I pulled up his account. He'd posted a new thread. Some family news. My sister has been struggling with some personal issues lately. She's making accusations that aren't true. I love her and hope she gets the help she needs. Please be kind if you see posts from her. She's not well. The implications were clear. He was painting me as mentally unstable, as someone whose accusations couldn't be trusted. The responses were sympathetic. Sorry you're dealing with this. Family can be so difficult. Hope she gets the support she needs. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I screenshotted the post and added it to my evidence file. Every time Derek tried to discredit me, he was creating more documentation of his malicious behavior. But the damage was still spreading. 2 more companies sent rejection emails. My LinkedIn connection requests were being ignored. People I'd networked with at tech meetups weren't responding to my messages. And then I discovered the worst part. I was looking through my mom's Facebook page, trying to see if there were any family photos that might help establish timeline context for my work, when I found something in her photo album from 4 months ago. Photos of my computer screen. Close-up shots of my code, my notebooks, my project documentation. Dozens of them. I scrolled further back. More photos. Going back 6 months. My mom had been systematically photographing my work and sending it to Derek. There were even text message screenshots she'd posted in a private family group chat. Got more samples for DM doing algorithm work tonight. Got clear pictures. My mom hadn't just enabled Derek's theft. She'd been an active participant. She'd spied on me in my own home, invaded my privacy, and handed my intellectual property to my brother. all while pretending to be a supportive parent. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I called Taylor, unable to speak through my tears. "Come to the living room," she said gently. "I'm right here." I found her on the couch, and she pulled me into a hug while I cried. Not just for the stolen work or the sabotaged career, but for the betrayal. My own mother, the person who was supposed to protect me, had actively worked to destroy me. "I can't do this," I whispered. "It's too much." "Yes, you can. You're stronger than you think. And you're not alone." But I felt alone. So completely devastatingly alone. The stress was destroying me. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I'd lost 8 pounds in a week. Taylor insisted I see a doctor, but without my job, my health insurance was limited. I went to a walk-in clinic where a tired-looking physician told me I was experiencing severe anxiety and stress. She prescribed medication I couldn't afford and recommended therapy I definitely couldn't afford. "Try to reduce your stress levels," she said, as if that were even possible. Derek's response to the demand letter came 3 days later. His lawyer, paid for by my parents, sent a letter calling my claims baseless and threatening to countersue for defamation and harassment. They claimed Derek had created all the work himself, and I was engaging in a malicious campaign to damage his reputation. Jennifer called me with the news. "They're trying to intimidate you. It's a common tactic, but based on the evidence, I don't think they'd succeed in a countersuit. But I can't afford to defend against one either, can I?" There was a pause. No, probably not. I felt trapped. Derek had won. He had the job, the family support, the money for lawyers. And I had nothing except the truth, which apparently wasn't enough. That night, Derek started his new position at Soft Cloud Solutions. He posted a photo of himself in his new office, looking proud and confident. The caption read, "Day 1, so grateful for this opportunity." I lay in Taylor's spare bedroom, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. I'd worked hard, played by the rules, and done everything right, and my family had crushed me anyway. I didn't know how to come back from this. The next week was the darkest of my life. Gary's internal review was still ongoing. I'd blown through my savings paying for the demand letter and my bills. Taylor was covering groceries and wouldn't let me pay rent, which made me feel like even more of a burden. I spent most days in my room alternating between numb exhaustion and rage. Derek's social media presence was thriving. He posted about his first week at SoftCloud, about meeting the team, about exciting projects he was working on. Every post was a knife in my chest. I'd stopped checking the comments on his original accusation posts. They'd taken on a life of their own, with people debating whether I was a victim or a vindictive liar. Some tech forums had even made threads discussing the situation, speculating about what really happened. It was humiliating. Taylor tried to keep my spirits up, but even she was running out of encouraging things to say. The evidence was compiled. The lawyer had sent the letter. Now we were just waiting, and the waiting was destroying me. On Thursday morning, 9 days after the interview disaster, I woke up to a LinkedIn message notification. I almost ignored it. Most of my LinkedIn messages these days were either spam or people asking invasive questions about the situation with Derek. But something made me check. The message was from someone named Cameron Price. His profile said he was a senior software engineer at Soft Cloud Solutions. My heart started pounding as I read the message. "Hi, Marissa. You don't know me, but I work at Soft Cloud. I was introduced to Derek Thompson this week as he joined our team. During his introduction presentation, he described a machine learning algorithm he supposedly built. I asked him some basic questions about the architecture and underlying methodology, and he couldn't answer them. He claimed he was nervous and needed to review his notes. This raised red flags for me. I did some research and found the online discussions about you and Derek. I also found your GitHub profile. I've looked at your commit history and your technical documentation. I'm a 15-year veteran of this industry, and I can tell the difference between someone who built something and someone who's just memorized talking points about it. I believe you. I want to help if I can. Derek is scheduled to give a full technical presentation to our entire engineering team next Tuesday. He's supposed to demonstrate the algorithm in depth and answer questions from the team. If he can't, which I strongly suspect he can't, the truth will come out naturally. I can't officially intervene without evidence, but I wanted you to know that some of us are paying attention. If you want to talk, I'm here. Best Cameron. I read the message 3 times, afraid I was misunderstanding it. Someone at SoftCloud believed me. Someone with authority and experience was paying attention. I showed Taylor, who read it carefully and then smiled for the first time in days. This could change everything. I messaged Cameron back immediately. Thank you for reaching out. I can't tell you how much this means. Yes, I'd like to talk. When are you available? He responded within minutes with his phone number. I called him right away. Cameron's voice was calm and measured. He explained that he'd been at SoftCloud for 7 years and had a reputation for mentoring junior developers. When Derek joined the team, Cameron had been assigned as his supervisor. During their first few one-on-one meetings, Derek had struggled to explain his own supposed work. I've seen this before, Cameron said. People who pad their resumes or claim credit for work they didn't do. They can usually fake it through an interview, but once they're actually working, the truth comes out. Derek can't write code at the level his portfolio suggests he should be able to. He's been making excuses, saying he needs time to settle in, but it's obvious he's in over his head. What happens at the presentation on Tuesday? I asked. He'll be asked to walk through the algorithm's logic, explain design decisions, answer questions about edge cases and optimization. If he built it, he should be able to do that easily. If he didn't, he'll fall apart. And if he falls apart, then we'll have serious questions about his qualifications and the validity of his portfolio. But Marissa, I can't officially do anything based on suspicion alone. The company has to follow proper procedures. However, if the presentation goes badly and if we have clear evidence that he misrepresented his work, then we can take action. I have evidence. So much evidence. GitHub logs, university records, my thesis advisor's statement, everything. Would you be willing to share that with me unofficially, just so I know what we're working with? Absolutely. I'll send it right now. I spent the next hour compiling a comprehensive packet. Every piece of evidence organized chronologically with clear explanations. I sent it to Cameron's personal email address, not his work address, to keep it unofficial for now. He called me back that evening. This is damning. The GitHub logs alone prove the work is yours. Combined with everything else, there's no question. I'm going to observe Derek's presentation very carefully on Tuesday. If he fails to demonstrate genuine understanding, I'll know what to do. For the first time in over a week, I felt hope. Real hope. Not just wishful thinking, but actual possibility. Taylor and I spent the weekend preparing for what might happen. Cameron had suggested I might need to be available on Tuesday in case the company needed to speak with me directly. He couldn't promise anything, but he wanted me ready. On Monday, I got another call, this time from Gary at my current job. Marissa, I've completed the review. I've looked at the evidence you provided, and I've looked at the accusations online. Based on your work history here and the documentation you've shown me, I believe you. I'm reinstating you effective immediately. I'm sorry for the stress this caused. I almost cried with relief. Thank you, Gary. You have no idea what this means. I should have trusted you from the start. Come back Wednesday. We'll get you caught up on projects. One piece of good news after another. Maybe things were finally turning around. But Monday night, my dad called again. I let it go to voicemail, but this time I listened to the message. Marissa, I heard you've been contacting people at Derek's company. You need to stop. This harassment has gone on long enough. Derek is thriving, and you're just making yourself look desperate and vindictive. Let it go. Move on. Find something else to do with your life. If you don't stop, there will be consequences. I'm not going to let you destroy your brother's career. The threat was clear. My dad was willing to do whatever it took to protect Derek, even if it meant destroying me completely. I saved the voicemail and added it to my evidence file. Every threat, every lie, every piece of sabotage was documented now. I wasn't just fighting for a job anymore. I was fighting for my entire professional future. Tuesday morning arrived. Cameron texted me at 9. Presentation is at 2 this afternoon. Stay by your phone. I'll update you when I can. I couldn't do anything but wait. Taylor took the day off work to keep me company. We tried to distract ourselves with movies, but I couldn't focus. Every minute felt like an hour. At 2:15, my phone stayed silent. At 2:30, still nothing. By 3, I was pacing Taylor's living room, convinced something had gone wrong. Then at 3:20, Cameron called. "You need to come to Soft Cloud. Now. Can you be here in an hour?" What happened? Derek's presentation was a disaster. He couldn't answer basic questions. He stumbled through explanations. It was obvious he didn't understand the work. The team is questioning everything now. "Sharon, our hiring manager wants to speak with you. Can you come?" "I'll be there in 40 minutes. I grabbed my laptop and my evidence folder. Taylor drove me since my car still had 2 slashed tires I couldn't afford to replace yet. During the drive, I tried to prepare myself. This was it. This was my chance to set the record straight. We arrived at Soft Cloud at 4. Cameron met me in the lobby. He was tall, probably 40, with kind eyes and a professional demeanor. "Thank you for coming on short notice. Sharon and Andrew are waiting in the conference room. They want to hear your side directly." "Is Derek here?" "He's in another room with HR. He knows you've been called in. He's not happy." "Good." Cameron led me to the same conference room where I'd had my disastrous interview 2 weeks ago. Sharon and Andrew were there looking serious. Cameron closed the door behind us. "Miss Thompson," Sharon began. "Thank you for coming. We've had some concerning developments today regarding Derek Thompson's presentation. Cameron has shared some preliminary information with us, and we'd like to hear from you directly. Can you walk us through your claims about the work in question?" I took a deep breath. This was my moment. I couldn't mess it up. "Yes, I'd like to show you everything." I opened my laptop and began to present. Methodically, calmly. I showed them the GitHub repository with 3 years of commit history. I showed them the access logs proving Derek had been copying my work for months. I showed them Dr. Hayes' statement. I showed them the photos of my mom documenting my work. I showed them the timeline of events, the slashed tires, the deleted files, the coordinated family sabotage. I answered every question they asked. I explained technical details about the algorithm that only someone who'd built it would know. I walked them through design decisions, bug fixes, optimization strategies, and I watched their expressions change, from skepticism to understanding to anger. After 90 minutes, Sharon sat back in her chair. "This is clear-cut intellectual property theft. Miss Thompson, I'm deeply sorry for what you've been put through. We were deceived during Derek's interview, and we should have been more thorough in our verification process." Andrew added, "Your technical knowledge is obvious. Derek couldn't answer questions about basic functionality. You can explain every detail. There's no question who actually built this work." Cameron spoke up. "I'd like to formally recommend we terminate Derek's employment immediately and extend a job offer to Marissa. She's clearly the qualified candidate we thought we were hiring." Sharon nodded. "I agree. Miss Thompson, we'd like to offer you the position Derek currently holds with a salary increase from the original posting as an apology for this situation. We'd also like to provide a signing bonus to compensate for the professional damage you've suffered. Would you be interested?" I couldn't speak for a moment. This was everything I'd wanted. Everything I'd fought for. "Yes. Absolutely yes." "Excellent. We'll have HR draw up the paperwork. You can start next Monday if that works for you." "It works perfectly." Sharon stood and shook my hand. "Again, I apologize for our role in this situation. We should have caught the discrepancies during the hiring process. Thank you for believing me now. That's what matters." As I left the conference room, I saw Derek in the hallway with an HR representative. His face was pale. When he saw me, his expression crumpled. "Marissa, please. You don't have to do this. I'll quit. I'll tell everyone the truth. Just don't press charges." I looked at him for a long moment. My little brother, the person I'd once played video games with, helped with homework, defended against bullies. The person who'd repaid that love by stealing my work and trying to destroy my life. "You should have thought about that before you stole from me," I said quietly. Then I walked past him and out of the building. Taylor was waiting in the parking lot. When she saw my face, she knew. "You got it." "I got it. The job, a raise, everything." We both started crying. Happy tears this time. Tears of relief and vindication and justice finally served. That night, Derek called me 17 times. I blocked his number. My parents called. I blocked them too. I was done with all of them. Jennifer called the next morning with more news. SoftCloud's legal department contacted me. They're providing documentation of Derek's fraud. With their support and the evidence you've compiled, I think we can pursue a civil suit if you want to. They're also willing to provide statements supporting your claims, which will help restore your professional reputation. What would a lawsuit accomplish? Financial compensation for damages, a legal record of what happened, and a strong deterrent against future harassment from your family. How much would it cost? With SoftCloud's support and the strength of the evidence, I'd be willing to take this on contingency. That means you don't pay unless we win, and then I take a percentage of the settlement. Standard is 33%. Let's do it. Over the next week, everything shifted. SoftCloud released a statement clarifying that Derek's employment had been terminated due to fraudulent claims on his application. They didn't name me, but people in the tech community connected the dots. The forum threads that had vilified me started to turn. People apologized. Companies that had rejected me reached out to reconsider. Derek's LinkedIn went quiet. My parents' social media posts celebrating his success were quietly deleted. And I started my new job at SoftCloud Solutions, working on projects I was actually passionate about, surrounded by people who respected my skills and believed in my integrity. Taylor helped me move into my own apartment. A real apartment, not a spare bedroom in my parents' house or a couch in a friend's living room. My own space. My own life. Dr. Hayes sent me a congratulatory email. Cameron became not just a colleague, but a real friend and mentor. Gary welcomed me back part-time since SoftCloud wanted me to transition in gradually. And for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. The first 2 weeks at SoftCloud were everything I'd hoped they'd be. The team was brilliant and collaborative. Cameron introduced me to everyone and made it clear he had full confidence in my abilities. Sharon checked in regularly to make sure I was settling in well. Andrew assigned me to lead a new machine learning project, something cutting-edge and challenging. I threw myself into the work with an intensity I hadn't felt in months. Every line of code I wrote felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Every problem I solved proved I belonged there. The team quickly saw that I knew what I was doing. In meetings, people asked for my input. They valued my expertise. They treated me like the professional I was. But Derek wasn't going quietly. The civil suit Jennifer filed on my behalf seemed to have awakened something desperate in him. He started calling from different numbers trying to reach me. I blocked each one. He sent emails that I forwarded to Jennifer without reading. He tried to connect with me on every social media platform. Blocked, blocked, blocked. Then he showed up at SoftCloud. Security stopped him in the lobby. He demanded to see me, claimed he needed to apologize, caused such a scene that the police were called. He left before they arrived, but Cameron made sure building security had his photo with instructions not to let him in. He's unraveling, Cameron told me after that incident. People who build their success on lies can't handle it when the truth comes out. Be careful. I was careful. I varied my route to work. I parked in different spots. I made sure Taylor knew my schedule. But I refused to live in fear. Derek had already taken enough from me. Jennifer's lawsuit was progressing. She'd filed a civil suit against Derek for intellectual property theft, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. She'd also named my parents as co-defendants for their role in the conspiracy. The amounts sought were substantial actual damages for lost wages and opportunities, punitive damages for their malicious behavior, and compensation for emotional distress. My parents hired a lawyer, an expensive one apparently based on the letterhead on the response to our complaint. They denied everything, claimed they'd simply been supportive parents, that any help they'd given Derek was normal family support, and that I was a vindictive daughter trying to extort money from them. The depositions were scheduled for 4 weeks out. Jennifer was confident. Their denials don't match the evidence. We have the text messages between your mother and Derek coordinating the theft. We have the photos she took. We have the access logs. They can deny all they want, but the facts speak for themselves. At work, my project was going well. Really well. The machine learning model I was developing was showing promising results. The team was excited about it. Andrew mentioned it might be featured at an upcoming industry conference. My name would be on it. My work would be recognized, publicly, legitimately. Then 3 weeks into my new job, Derek's presentation came due. Not at SoftCloud anymore, but something worse. He'd been invited to speak at a local tech meetup group before his employment was terminated. The invitation had been based on his fraudulent portfolio. The organizers didn't know yet that everything had fallen apart. Cameron heard about it through the local tech community network. He's still planning to give the talk. He's going to present on the same algorithm. Your algorithm. Can we stop him? The meetup is hosted by a private group. We don't have any authority there. But you could attend. You could ask questions during the Q&A. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to avoid Derek entirely, to just let him fail on his own. But another part, the part that had fought so hard for the truth, wanted to face him directly. I'll go, I decided. Taylor insisted on coming with me. So did Cameron. Jennifer advised against it, worried it might complicate the lawsuit, but she couldn't stop me. It wasn't illegal to attend a public tech meetup. The event was on a Thursday evening at a co-working space downtown. About 50 people attended, mostly local developers and tech enthusiasts. Derek was scheduled to speak at 7. We arrived at 6:45 and sat in the back row. Derek walked in at 6:55. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, and his hands shook as he set up his laptop. He saw me immediately. Our eyes met across the room. For a moment, I thought he might bolt, but instead his expression hardened. He was going to do this anyway. The meetup organizer, a friendly woman named Beth, introduced Derek enthusiastically. We're excited to have Derek Thompson here tonight to talk about machine learning algorithms and their practical applications. Derek recently worked on some impressive projects in this space, and we can't wait to hear about his process. Let's give him a warm welcome. Polite applause. Derek stepped up to the microphone. His voice wavered at first, then steadied. He started his presentation with the same slides he'd probably used at SoftCloud. My slides. My diagrams. My code samples. He talked about the algorithm's purpose, its potential applications, its advantages over existing solutions. All things I'd written in my original documentation. He was reciting my words, my ideas, my vision, and he was doing it in front of dozens of people while I sat there watching. For the first 20 minutes, he managed to hold it together, but then the questions started. A developer in the third row raised her hand. Can you explain how you handled the overfitting problem with your training data? Derek froze. The overfitting problem? Yes. With machine learning models, overfitting is a common issue. How did you address it? I used standard techniques. Regularization, cross-validation. Which regularization method specifically? L2 regularization. The developer frowned. Interesting. Your code samples show L1 regularization with a specific dropout layer configuration. Can you explain that design choice? Derek's face went red. I must have misspoken. Yes, L1. That's what I meant. But the damage was done. The audience was paying closer attention now. More hands went up. Cameron asked the next question. I'm curious about your dataset selection. What made you choose that particular dataset for training? Derek stumbled through an answer that didn't make technical sense. Someone else asked about computational complexity. Derek gave an answer that contradicted his earlier statements. Another question about edge cases. Derek claimed he'd need to review his notes. The room's energy had shifted from interested to skeptical. Beth, the organizer, looked uncomfortable. Maybe we should move on to the demonstration portion. Derek nodded gratefully. He pulled up his laptop and loaded what should have been a working demo of the algorithm. But something was wrong. The program threw an error. He tried to run it again. Another error. He started frantically typing, trying to debug in real time in front of an audience. Technical difficulties happen, Beth said diplomatically. Why don't we take a short break? Derek, you can try to get this working and we'll resume in 10 minutes. People stood and moved toward the refreshment table. I stayed seated. Taylor squeezed my hand. Okay, I'm fine. This is hard to watch. It was hard to watch. Despite everything Derek had done to me, seeing him publicly humiliate himself felt awful. He was my brother. We'd grown up together. And now he was falling apart because he'd built his success on lies. After 10 minutes, Beth called everyone back. Derek had managed to get the demo running, but it was clear he didn't fully understand what it was doing. When people asked questions about the output or the parameters, his answers were vague and uncertain. Then I raised my hand. Beth called on me. I stood up. I have a question about the development process. How long did it take you to build this algorithm from concept to working implementation? Derek's eyes locked on mine. About a year. Interesting. Because the GitHub repository shows development spanning almost 2 years with the initial commit dated 3 years ago. Can you explain that discrepancy? The room went silent. Derek's mouth opened and closed. I don't know what you're talking about. The GitHub repository. The one that was originally built by someone else. The one you copied. Beth stepped forward. Excuse me, but who are you? I'm Marissa Thompson, Derek's sister, and the person who actually built the algorithm he's presenting tonight. The room erupted in murmurs. Beth looked between Derek and me, confused. Derek's face had gone from red to white. That's not true, he said, but his voice was weak. She's lying. I have documentation, I said calmly. 3 years of commit history on GitHub, university records from my thesis project, statements from my thesis advisor, access logs showing when you copied my code. Everything. Cameron stood up. I'm Cameron Price, Senior Engineer at Soft Cloud Solutions. I can verify that we investigated this situation thoroughly. Derek was terminated from his position with us 2 weeks ago for fraudulent claims on his application. The work he's presenting tonight was stolen from his sister. The murmurs turned into shocked exclamations. Beth looked horrified. Derek looked like he might be sick. I think Beth said carefully, "We need to end this presentation. Derek, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." But Derek didn't leave. Instead, he did something I didn't expect. He broke down, completely, right there in front of everyone. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. It started small. I just borrowed some code to help with a school project. Then Dad said I should use it for job applications. Then it became this whole thing and I didn't know how to stop. Mom and Dad kept pushing, saying I needed to succeed, that I was the son and it was my responsibility. I felt so much pressure. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop." He was crying now, mascara. No, wait. Men don't wear mascara. He was crying, tears running down his face. "Marissa, I ruined your life. I ruined my own life. I ruined everything. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The room was silent. Everyone was watching this spectacle unfold. I felt Taylor's hand on my arm, but I shook her off and walked toward the front. I stood in front of Derek. "You're sorry now because you got caught," I said quietly. "If this had worked, if you'd gotten away with it, you wouldn't be sorry at all. You'd still be using my work and pretending it was yours." "I know. You're right. I'm a terrible person." "You're not a terrible person. You made terrible choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." I turned to Beth. "I have evidence with me if you want to verify what I'm saying. GitHub access logs, university, records everything." Beth nodded slowly. "I'd like to see that. This is a serious accusation, and we need to understand what happened here." I spent the next 30 minutes showing Beth and several other meetup organizers my evidence. They compared it to Derek's presentation materials. The similarities were undeniable. One of the organizers, a senior developer named Marcus, shook his head in disgust. "This is plagiarism, intellectual property theft. We pride ourselves on fostering an honest, collaborative tech community. This is the opposite of our values." Beth agreed. "Derek, you're banned from our meetup group permanently. We'll be alerting other local tech organizations about this situation." "I'm deeply sorry this happened, Marissa. If you'd like to give a presentation about your actual work at a future meetup, we'd be honored to host you." "I'll think about it. Thank you." Derek was still sitting on the floor near the podium, his head in his hands. People were leaving, some giving him disgusted looks, others just looking uncomfortable. The social fallout was immediate. I could see people pulling out their phones, probably posting about what had just happened on social media. As Taylor, Cameron, and I left the building, my phone started buzzing. Messages from people who'd been at the meetup expressing support. Texts from other developers in the local community offering encouragement. LinkedIn notifications of new connection requests. But then a call came through from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Marissa Thompson. Yes. This is Officer Lisa Grant from the police department. We've received a complaint from a Richard Thompson claiming you've been harassing and threatening his son Derek Thompson. We need you to come to the station to answer some questions. My stomach dropped. My dad was trying to get me arrested. When do you need me to come in? Can you come tonight, or first thing tomorrow morning? I'll come now. I hung up and looked at Taylor and Cameron. My dad filed a police complaint. They want me to come to the station. I'm coming with you, Taylor said immediately. Me too, Cameron added. And call Jennifer. You need your lawyer present. I called Jennifer from the car. She said she'd meet us at the police station in 30 minutes. My hands were shaking as I drove. This was my dad's revenge. If he couldn't protect Derek's reputation, he'd try to destroy mine legally. At the police station, Officer Grant was professional but serious. Jennifer arrived just as we were being led to an interview room. She immediately took control of the situation. My client will cooperate fully, but I want to understand the nature of the complaint first. Officer Grant pulled out a file. Richard Thompson claims his daughter Marissa has been stalking and harassing his son Derek. He says she's been making false accusations, publicly showed up at Derek's workplace, and tonight confronted him at a public event. He's requesting a restraining order and wants to press charges for harassment. Jennifer didn't miss a beat. My client has been the victim of intellectual property theft by her brother Derek Thompson. She has extensive documentation of this theft, which has been reviewed by multiple entities, including Soft Cloud Solutions, where Derek was recently terminated for fraud. Tonight's incident was not harassment, but a public correction of false information Derek was presenting at a tech meetup. Multiple witnesses can verify that Marissa's statements were factual, and that Derek publicly admitted to stealing her work. Officer Grant looked surprised. There's a civil suit pending. Yes. Against Derek Thompson and his parents for intellectual property theft, fraud, and conspiracy. The evidence is overwhelming. This complaint is a retaliatory attempt to intimidate my client into dropping her legitimate legal claims. I see. Can you provide documentation of these claims? For the next hour, Jennifer presented the evidence. All of it. The GitHub, logs the university records, Dr. Hayes' statement, the text messages between my mother and Derek SoftCloud's termination documentation, witness statements from tonight's meetup. Everything. Officer Grant reviewed it carefully. Finally, she looked up. Miss Thompson, this doesn't appear to be harassment. It appears to be you defending yourself against theft and fraud. I'm not going to pursue charges based on this complaint. However, I do need to advise you to avoid any direct contact with your family members while the civil suit is pending. Any further interactions should go through your attorney. I understand. I don't want any contact with them anyway. Good. You're free to go. As we left the police station at almost midnight, I felt exhausted and vindicated in equal measure. My dad's attempt to intimidate me had backfired. The police now had documentation of Derek's theft on record. And I had yet another piece of evidence of my family's malicious behavior. They're getting desperate, Jennifer said as we stood in the parking lot. That's actually good for us. Desperate people make mistakes. Keep documenting everything, and let me handle any further contact from them. I drove home to my apartment, Taylor, following behind me to make sure I got there safely. Inside, I collapsed on my couch. Tomorrow was Friday. I had to work. I had to pretend everything was normal and keep performing at my job while my entire life was imploding outside of work hours. But as I lay there in the dark, I realized something. They hadn't broken me. My family had done everything possible to destroy my career and my credibility, and I was still here, still fighting, still standing. That had to count for something. The months following the meetup incident were a blur of legal proceedings, depositions, and slowly rebuilding my life. But they were also months of triumph of watching justice unfold in real time. The depositions for the civil suit happened first. I sat across a conference table from Derek, my mom, and my dad with their lawyer present, and Jennifer by my side. I watched Derek squirm as he was forced to admit under oath that he'd copied my code. I watched my mom try to justify photographing my work, claiming she was just being a supportive mother. I watched my dad attempt to reframe his threats and sabotage as tough love. None of it worked. Jennifer dismantled their defenses methodically. She presented the text messages showing premeditation. She showed the deleted files recovery data. She played the voicemail where my dad threatened me. She showed the photos of my slashed tires matched with timestamps proving he was home that morning. By the end, even their lawyer looked uncomfortable with the case he was defending. The settlement came 2 months later. Derek and my parents agreed to pay me $42,000 in damages. It wasn't everything I'd lost, but it was substantial. It was an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. It was justice on paper. Derek also signed an agreement to never use any of my code to issue a public retraction of his accusations, and to stay at least 500 feet away from me at all times. My parents signed similar non-contact agreements. The public retraction was posted on all the platforms where Derek had originally made his accusations. It was simple and direct. I, Derek Thompson, falsely accused my sister, Marissa Thompson, of plagiarism and theft. The truth is that I stole her work and attempted to claim it as my own. I deeply regret my actions and the harm I caused to her reputation and career. All of the code and projects I claim to have created were actually created by Marissa. She is the talented developer, not me. I apologize unreservedly. The response from the tech community was swift. People who'd believed Derek's original story apologized to me. The forum threads were updated with the truth. My LinkedIn messages filled with supportive notes from other developers, especially women in tech, who'd faced similar family sabotage. Companies that had rejected me reached out to apologize and reconsider. I politely declined. I was happy at SoftCloud. And SoftCloud was giving me everything I dreamed of. My machine learning project was a success. We presented it at a regional tech conference 6 months after I'd started. My name was on the paper. My work was recognized. Standing on that stage explaining the algorithm I'd built, answering questions from engaged audiences, I felt complete vindication. After the presentation, 3 people approached me with job offers. I turned them all down. Cameron had become not just a mentor but a genuine friend. Sharon was the best manager I'd ever had. The team valued my expertise and my perspective. I was exactly where I belonged. The $42,000 from the settlement allowed me to pay off a significant chunk of my student loans, replace my slashed tires, and build a real emergency fund. Financial stability felt like freedom. Taylor and I celebrated by taking a weekend trip to the coast. We rented a little beach house, drank wine, and talked about everything that had happened. "You did it," she said one evening as we watched the sunset. "You fought back, and you won." "We did it," I corrected. "I couldn't have survived without you." That's what best friends are for. Dr. Hayes invited me to speak to her current class of computer science students about navigating family opposition and gender bias in tech. Standing in front of those young women and men, sharing my story, seeing their faces as they realized they weren't alone in facing these challenges that was as powerful as any legal victory. I told them about the sabotage, the theft, the public humiliation, but I also told them about the evidence I'd kept the allies who believed in me the courage to stand up even when terrified. I told them that documentation matters, that truth matters, that their work and their worth aren't defined by people who refuse to see them. "Your talent is real even if your family doesn't acknowledge it," I said. "Your accomplishments are valid even if someone tries to steal credit. And you are stronger than you think you are. Document everything. Build your network. Find people who believe in you. And never, ever let anyone convince you to make yourself smaller to make them comfortable." The standing ovation I received that day meant more than any amount of money ever could. Cameron continued to mentor me, and within a year I was promoted to senior machine learning developer. I started mentoring junior developers myself, especially women who reminded me of who I'd been. Brilliant, capable, and sometimes doubting themselves because the world had taught them to. Derek's life went in a different direction. He moved out of state. I heard through the tech community grapevine that he'd left the industry, entirely gotten a job in sales. Part of me felt sad about that. He'd had potential, but he'd ruined it by taking shortcuts. Maybe someday he'd rebuild his life honestly. But that wasn't my responsibility anymore. My parents sent a letter through Jennifer about a year after the settlement. It was full of justifications and blame shifting, but buried in it was something that might have been an attempt at an apology. They wanted to reconcile and move past this difficult time. I wrote back through Jennifer, no thank you. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their love if it came with conditions and sabotage. I had Taylor who'd housed me and supported me when I had nothing. I had Cameron who'd believed in me when he had no reason to. I had Dr. Hayes who documented my work and vouched for my integrity. I had colleagues who respected my skills and my character. That was my real family. The family I'd chosen and who'd chosen me back. 2 years after the initial interview disaster, I was featured in a tech industry publication in an article about overcoming adversity in STEM careers. They wanted to tell my story as inspiration for others facing similar challenges. I agreed, but only if I could control the narrative. The article was titled How One Developer Fought Back Against Family Sabotage and Won. It detailed everything: the theft, the sabotage, the legal battle, and the ultimate triumph. It included my photo, my real name, and my accomplishments. Not Derek's name on my work, but mine. Finally, permanently, publicly mine. The article went viral in tech circles. I received hundreds of messages from people sharing similar stories. Women whose families didn't support their tech careers. Men whose brothers had stolen their work. People who'd been sabotaged by those closest to them. I responded to as many as I could, offering advice and encouragement. Document everything. Trust in your truth. Find allies. Don't give up. Simple advice, but powerful, when coming from someone who'd lived it. Soft Cloud asked if I'd be interested in speaking at their annual company meeting about resilience and integrity. I agreed. Standing in front of hundreds of employees, including Sharon and Andrew, who'd given me a second chance, I told my story again. But this time I focused on the lessons I'd learned. I learned that your value isn't determined by those who should love you but choose not to see it, I said. I learned that real family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who believe in you and stand beside you when you have nothing left. I learned that documentation and evidence matter, that patience and persistence can outlast sabotage. And I learned that standing up for yourself, even when you're terrified, is the only path to freedom. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, at least a dozen employees approached me privately to share their own stories of family betrayal or career sabotage. I listened to each one, offered what advice I could, and felt grateful that my pain could help others navigate theirs. 3 years after everything fell apart, I bought my first house. A small 2-bedroom place with a yard, good internet, and a room I could convert into a home office. It was mine. Fully, completely mine. No one could take it from me or use it to control me. Taylor helped me move in. So did Cameron and several of my colleagues from Soft Cloud. We spent the day hauling furniture, hanging pictures, and christening my new kitchen with pizza and beer. As I looked around at these people, my chosen family laughing and celebrating with me, I realized I'd won. Not just the lawsuit, not just my career back, but something bigger, my freedom, my identity, my life on my own terms. That night alone in my new house, I opened my laptop and looked at my GitHub profile. Hundreds of repositories, thousands of commits, years of work, all documented, all mine. The evidence of who I was and what I could do. No one could erase that. No one could steal it. It was permanent proof that I existed, that I mattered, that I could build something meaningful. I thought about the girl I'd been 3 years ago, living in her parents' house, finding her portfolio deleted, terrified that her dreams were over. I wished I could tell her what I knew now, that she was stronger than she believed, that she'd survive, that she'd more than survive, she'd thrive. The journey had been brutal. The betrayal had cut deeper than I'd thought possible, but it had also shown me who I really was, not someone who could be broken by sabotage or lies, not someone who would quietly accept injustice. Someone who fought back, someone who stood up, someone who refused to be erased. Sometimes I still saw Derek's LinkedIn profile when someone in the tech community shared something and his name appeared in the comments. He'd moved to Arizona, worked in pharmaceutical sales, seemed to have started over. I felt nothing when I saw his updates. Not anger, not satisfaction, just nothing. He was a stranger who'd once been my brother. That was all. My parents I blocked on everything. I'd heard from extended family members that they'd told everyone I was the problem, that I'd torn the family apart with my vindictiveness. Let them believe that. The people who mattered knew the truth. What I'd learned through all of it was this: your talent and worth aren't diminished by those who refuse to see them. Sometimes the people who should support you will be the ones who try to tear you down. But if you have evidence of your truth allies who believe in you and the courage to stand up for yourself, you can overcome even the most painful betrayals. Success isn't just about winning. It's about refusing to let anyone else define your value. It's about building a life on your own terms with people who genuinely care about you. It's about knowing that when everything falls apart, you have the strength to rebuild it better than before. And sometimes the family you choose is infinitely more powerful than the family you're born into. I learned that I was enough. Just me. My skills, my work, my integrity, that was enough. Not because my family finally acknowledged it, but because I knew it. Because I'd proven it to myself and to the people who mattered. That was the real victory. Not the job, not the settlement, not the public vindication. The real victory was knowing deeply and certainly that I was exactly who I was supposed to be. A talented developer, a good friend, a strong woman, someone who'd faced the worst and come out the other side intact. 3 years after my dad deleted my coding portfolio the night before my dream job interview, I sat in my own house working on a project I was passionate about, surrounded by people who loved and respected me. I'd lost a family, but I'd gained myself. And that was the best trade I'd ever made. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to fight back against someone who tried to sabotage your dreams? How did you overcome it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's going through something similar right now. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more stories about resilience and triumph, and share this with someone who needs to hear that they're strong enough to fight back. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that you're more powerful than anyone who tries to diminish you. Keep fighting for yourself, keep believing in your worth, and never let anyone steal your light. You've got this.